Welcome to the short demo video about ConnectIT 365. In this video I will show you how to set up a Json export. This export can be set up in two ways. You can either set up the lines manually or you can set it up using our wizard. This video will focus on the manual setup, and in our next video we will discuss how to process this with the wizard. So let's get started. First we go to the export definitions, and here you have an overview of all export definitions available. From here we click on new and we go to the export definition card. Here we need to insert some general information. First of all, we need a description, and of course we need to set the data format, which in our case needs to stay JSON. For the method we will use manually, and we will set the definition to active. From here you see that we have the definition lines available, and here we can choose which types of lines we can use. For this demo, I've prepared a demo format which we want to use, which is visible over here, and it's the actual export that we want to set up in ConnectIT. So this is an export that is based on the item and that also uses some data from the unit of measure. To get this export, we need to start with a data item, and this is where we can select which tables to use. So as I said, we use the item table in this case, which we can see over here, table 27. And from here we go to the next line, where you can see it automatically fills with the type field, and it's one level down from the data item, which indicates it belongs to that data item. So first of all, we want the number, we want the description, and we want the base unit of measure. Now, in the file, it actually showed us base EOM instead of the full name, which we can change over here. And after this, the unit of measure details are visible in the export. And for that, we need an additional data item. And that, of course, is the table unit of measure. And if we select a field in the next line, we can see that we can choose all the fields available from the unit of measure. In this case, we want the code, we want the description, and we want the international standard code. Now, the code wasn't actually visible in the export. However, we do need it to link back to the data item for the item, because we need to know how the unit of measure table is related to the item. So in this case, we can say that the code connects to the base unit of measure field in the item table. And that's something that we can set up over here in the key field number. And here we can select the correct field from the item table. So now it is linked on the base unit of measure, which connects to the code in the unit of measure. As I said, this wasn't visible in the output, so we can deselect the output over here. So it's used for the link, but not actually visible in the output. Next, in the export, I will just show it again. We actually have the international standard code available once again, however this time on the same level as the item, and we can achieve that by using a constant, making sure it's outdented so it is on the same level as item. And we can simply give it a name for the element. However, we want this value to be shown over here. So for that, we need to use a function. And we need to use the setTempVal function to set a temporary value. Now for this, you can just create a new code as long as it's unique. And if we refresh, you will see a row now has one function. And on this line, we need to get that same value with the getTempVal function. And we can just copy paste it, but we could also select it from this list. So that will be enough to get that value over here, one level above the actual unit of measure. Next up, we also had the type available. And you can see that because I have selected this level on the same level as the item, I now have the item fields available once again. And after this, we had some vendor information. However, this was actually available in the item table. So instead of choosing a new data item, we choose a helper. And once again, we need to give an element name. But we can use this to go one level deeper to create a node in the output. However, still use fields from the item table. So in this case, we want the vendor number, and the vendor item number, and after that we also have the unit cost. Only two fields remaining. So for this, these are both fields once again in the item table. And the first one is the unit price. And the second one is the Boolean prices, including VAT. Which in the output has a slightly different name. Once again, for these two fields, we need to outdent them to get the proper format. To make sure that we have some useful information to show, we want to set up some filtering. In this case, we want to make sure that we show something useful in the export. So for this, I will set the vendor number unequal to empty to make sure that we get some vendor information. We can now close this, and we see that we have one filter selected on the item. From here, we can use create example export, which shows us exactly that, an example for one record only. And that's the first record that we'll find based on the root data item, in this case the item. So if we do create example export, we'll get the file. And from here we can see that besides the decimals, it looks pretty much the same. The same fields, the same indentation, the same nodes. That's all that's needed to create the JSON export. As mentioned earlier, In the next video, we will discuss how to set up this export using our wizard to create the definition lines for us. Thank you for joining this video. If you have any further questions, you can contact us via sales@idun.nl.